The High Court will rule this morning on the case of a man whose comments on Twitter about transgender people were recorded as a hate incident by police. In one tweet, Harry Miller, a former policeman from Lincolnshire, said he was assigned mammal at birth, but his orientation was fish. He claims official police guidelines have a chilling effect on free speech. Here's our legal correspondent, Clive Coleman.
Harry Miller regularly tweets, sometimes using graphic language, about proposed changes to the law which could make it easier for a man to be legally recognised as a woman and vice versa. In January 2019, a transgender woman complained about his tweets and he was questioned by Humberside Police. In accordance with police guidance, the episode was recorded as a non-crime hate incident, which means it can be disclosed in checks by potential employers. Mr. Miller claims the guidance breaches free speech and the logged incidents require no victim and no evidence of hate. Transgender campaigners say such incidents should be logged to protect transgender people and others.
Well, following that report on BBC Radio 4's Today programme this morning, free speech has won the day it would seem, at least for this case. The High Court has just upheld our rights to free speech by siding with the former police officer Harry Miller in his case against Humberside Police, who, a High Court judge stated acted unlawfully when they attempted to tell him what he could and could not say in relation to transgender issues on Twitter. I'm sure you all know about the batshit crazy policy currently used by all UK police forces that actively waste time and money arresting and prosecuting people for saying mean words on Twitter, or in the case of Count Dankula in Scotland, making a meme on YouTube that had his pug lifting its paw in the air nets him an £800 fine and a criminal record, because someone's fifis might have been hurt somewhere by such spicy memes, or in the case of Twitter, just meme words. It seems to the police, stopping rampant knife crime and other serious offences are not important when people might be getting offended online. Now hopefully, after this case, we can start seeing a bit of a reversal to that nonsense because, like I said, the High Court not only sided with Harry Miller here, but said they find the actions of the police force in this case to have a chilling effect on free speech, and even pointed out how they took the complete piss by going to his place of work because they didn't want him tweeting about transgender issues even though he had broken no law. This is something we definitely need to get onto the government about because they cannot let this happen. I would place money on it most of the people who voted for them last time will never support the police preventing people from saying what they want, because I'm sure you will all agree this is not only a disgrace to the police force itself but to the country as a whole. But now we will take a look at a short clip from the venereal disease show earlier, where the story was reported shortly after the decision was made, with the BBC still making out like Harry Miller's tweets are allegedly transphobic, which clearly they are not.
Now, the High Court has just ruled that allegedly transphobic tweets from a former police officer were lawful and Humberside Police interfered with his right to freedom of expression. Harry Miller from Lincolnshire challenged police guidance on hate incidents against transgender people after he was officially logged for comments he made on social media. Mr. Miller claims the guidelines issued by the College of Policing have had a chilling effect on freedom of expression. Let's bring in our legal eagle, Clive Coleman, at the High Court. Clive, tell us more about this ruling.
Well, just to give you a little bit of background on this, so this guidance that the police apply arose out of the Stephen Lawrence case, and the idea is that you damp down on non-crime hate incidents before they escalate into serious hate crime. Now, Harry Miller regularly tweets. He is very much of the view that a man cannot become a woman. He says this is all, his tweets are in the context of a debate the government have invited in relation to the reform of the Gender Recognition Act. The proposed reforms would make it easier for a man to be legally recognised as a woman and vice versa. If proposed reforms go through, there'd be a greater element of self-identification. Currently, it's a very long and very stringent process for that to take place. Now, what the judge has ruled today is that the guidance that allows the police to log these non-crime hate incidents, and Joanna, they can be turned up on an advanced disclosure and barring check, so they do have a real consequence. He's ruled that the system, the guidance, is lawful, but the way it was applied by Humberside Police in the case of Harry Miller was unlawful. The fact that they logged 31 of his tweets, that they went to his place of work, that he was interviewed by a police officer and told that if he didn't desist then he could be prosecuted. Very strong words from Mr. Justice Knowles this morning. He says that freedom of speech without the right to irritate, if you like, is not worth having. He said we've never had a Gestapo or a Stasi in this country, and so the actions of Humberside Police were disproportionate in relation to Mr. Miller's exercise of his right to free speech. I should say that trans groups very much are of the view that these incidents should be logged, not just to protect transgender people, but to protect everybody. And this is a very, very heated and often acrimonious debate with very strong and passionate views held on both sides. And I anticipate that trans groups will be extremely concerned about the ruling today.
Thank you, Clive.
Well, like I said, Joanna Gosling fucks that up almost instantly, claiming Harry Miller's tweets are allegedly transphobic, when I'm pretty sure the High Court ruled that they wasn't, and that the only people in the wrong here are the scumbag police force that went full Gestapo on this guy's right to say what the fuck he likes and offend whichever delicate little snowflake he so pleases. She should have said his perfectly lawful tweets based on either fact or opinion, because that's what they were, and the shit-kicker police force acted unlawfully by trying to infringe on this guy's rights to freedom of expression. You really have got to love the BBC for its commitment to the woke lunatics of the world, that they actually put alleged transphobic tweets in their report about something the courts have found not to be transphobic. So in 2020, to the BBC, you might still be guilty even if you're proven innocent by a court of law. I mean, let's be real here. They are talking about the victim while still claiming he is allegedly transphobic. You really couldn't make this shit up, could you? We then hear the BBC shitweasel explaining the case, starting with the nonsensical police guidelines that considers anything slightly spicy a possible crime that could lead to an actual crime being committed, because memes are now lethal weapons, before pointing out Harry Miller's common sense approach to men and women that the majority of the world agrees with and is based on biological fact. The last time I checked, it was instead the police who acted like a worthless bunch of cunts for going above and beyond the guidance they claimed to be following by storing his tweets, going to his work, and putting reports on a database that could affect his ability to get certain jobs in the future, when they clearly had no legal right to do that. You heard him say the judge was extremely scathing towards the Humberside police force, saying freedom of speech without the right to piss people off is not worth having, and how we have never had the Gestapo in this country, even if the Humberside police force and woke lunatics would like it to be so. So I'm sure you would agree this is a great victory for freedom of speech, and should at least set precedent that could help someone else in a similar situation, but it's nowhere near the end of the road in the battle for freedom of speech, that is for sure. I will say well done to Harry Miller, his team and the High Court for trying to fight back against the nonsense we are seeing too much of these days. Now, we did hear from Harry Miller after the case, along with a trans activist who for the most part agrees with the court's decision, which I think caught the BBC off guard. I would say they wanted them to come out and attack the decision. Maybe the BBC shitweasels should do some better research next time. But let's take a look at that clip before I end this video.
Mr. Justice Knowles says the effect of the police turning up at his place of work because of his political opinions must not be underestimated. To do so would be to undervalue a cardinal democratic freedom. In this country, we have never had a Checker, a Gestapo or a Stasi. We have never lived in an Orwellian society. Now, some people will take that to mean that the kind of blogging and tweeting that Harry Miller was doing is completely acceptable. That will divide opinion. Many will feel, no, it is not acceptable. Trans groups, and we've spoken to trans groups in researching the story, of course, and they say, look, these incidents should be logged by the police, not simply to protect transgender people, but to protect everybody.
Well, Mr Miller himself echoed the words of Mr Justice Julian Knowles, who made the High Court ruling, when he spoke to reporters outside the Royal Courts of Justice.
We have never had a Gestapo or a Stasi in Great Britain, but the actions of Humberside Police came way too close for comfort. This is a watershed moment for liberty. The police were wrong to visit my workplace, wrong to check my thinking, wrong in their attempt to force me the Stonewall and now the Labour Party trans right pledge.
Well, Katie John Went is a transgender activist who's advised the police on transgender issues, and she said police have to steer a careful course between the law and protection of free speech.
And I love colourful language, but there's a big difference between using language that has an intent of hate and language that can be interpreted as hate. And that is one of the big dilemmas between incidents that are not hate crimes, but are interpreted as hate or seen as taking offence or creating non-personal victims, if we can call it that. So, and I would be the kind of person who would happily debate and discuss with Harry Miller, including humour, including colourful language, and I personally wouldn't take offence, but that's my choice not to take offence. So I do see that it's a very difficult tightrope that everyone's walking, the thin line between love and hate in this kind of language.
And where does it leave the police in forming a judgment over whether something is a non-crime hate incident? Because as you've described it, it's quite hard to find the line.
And it is, because it's almost impossible to police intent, and it's too late to police intent after the fact when a build-up of hate incidents have actually become a hate crime, and or indeed a hate crime that may result in violence and or murder. And then you might want to look at the back catalogue of a pattern of hate incidents against someone. So I can understand the reasoning behind building up a pattern of hate incidents in order to be able to see, oh, look, this has been leading to this. And I can understand the dilemma of a number of hate incidents actually creating a hostile environment for people in society like myself. But where it's not been directed at an individual, I think there needs to be a far greater degree of leniency and understanding, and to celebrate that in Britain we should still be a bastion of free speech, but that doesn't mean we should be enabling hate speech. And I don't think, I can't see all of Harry Miller's previous tweets because he was taken off Twitter eventually. And I think, and Twitter is one of the last social media platforms that has the least degree of control over it, which is both a good and an ill. And I think we have to run the risk of the ill to preserve that freedom to speak.
So do you basically feel then that the High Court has come up with the right outcome, as in to support guidelines which say we have to clock all these incidents, but to uphold the right to freedom of expression in this case of Harry Miller?
Yes, I do actually. I think it's okay to clock them, to continue to record them. I think it's extreme to visit someone's workplace. I was visited once by the police for a moment of humour, and I think when your humour gets policed, that is problematic, particularly when you're visited at a workplace or a home by two police sergeants, as I was once, to be told that my humour had crossed a line. I think that is very dangerous territory. But I'd be quite happy to have information around that held on file, so that if after 1,000 pieces of humour that it had led to a hateful incident, then I think that's okay. I think that is proportionate. I think it's disproportionate doing the visiting in face around that. And so I think they've come out with the right judgment. I think.
Right, so you see there, even a trans activist actually agrees with what the court has done. Because as you've heard, their humour has been policed before, so they know exactly what it's like. And if it can happen to us, it can happen to them, the same as it can happen to anyone from any race, religion, creed, sexuality, or anything else you decide to call yourself in this day and age. It really is incredible, but I do think the BBC host was kind of shocked that this trans activist agreed with the court's decision and backed Harry Miller's right to say what he wants. Because you all know the BBC, they do love to get a bit of controversy going in there and attacking any decision that goes against the woke nonsense that I would expect most of their presenters and editors all follow religiously. But as I said earlier, it's definitely a good victory for free speech. One of the few in this day and age. But on that note, guys, I am going to end the video there. Now before I go, I've started doing live streams and uploading gaming content on my second channel. If you would like to come and join me for a live stream to chat in real time, have an interest in gaming related content on YouTube, or just want to follow me over there because you are a legend, the link will be down in the video description below and as a pinned comment. I hope to see you all there. Now as always, before I go, I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next one.